Welcome back to another segment of the Moderately Educated News Network, otherwise known as MEN. I'm here with my lovely co-host Stefan, and today we'll be discussing about the Russia RT indictment and multiple influencers that were named. Well, I won't say named, but they were part of said indictment for propagating Russian influence and being paid subsidiaries of Russia RT, which is a known propaganda network or state-funded media inside of Russia. Um, YouTube just removed, as of 12 days ago, removed their right-wing content um, from the platform. I think two accounts had been outright banned. One was removed from.
Lauren and Tenet Media.
There you go. Yeah, so they were removed and then or banned, and then one was taken down from the owner before it could get banned. Um, so that being said, it looks like mostly they're in trouble for breaking FARA. The I'd have to let me see what FARA stands for real quick. I think it's foreign registry or something. Let me see. FARA. Foreign Agents Registration Act. Okay, that's mostly what they're in trouble for. Because anytime that you propagate outside influence or other governments' influence inside of the US, you have to register as a foreign agent. And these people failed to do so, keeping their money dealings and propaganda pushing all under the table and to make it look like it was original opinions. They did not outwardly claim that they were being state funded from the Russian state, and hence the reason for said indictment. Um, Stefan, did I miss anything? Is there anything, any comments, questions, concerns? Take it away, my friend.
So only comment I have. So Lauren Chen, she essentially was seen, or she's assumed to have had knowledge that they're receiving money from Russia directly, in the amount of 10 million, I believe, between 2022 to now. So her and her husband knew this. I don't remember the husband's name, but the husband is the owner of Tenet Media. So they knew this. They've been propagating Russian propaganda. There are some other personalities that or other influencers that have been linked to Tenet Media, but they basically are claiming like, no, we did not know. We didn't know what was going on. Tim Pool being one of them, I believe Benny Johnson being another, and I forgot the name of the third guy. I think it's Dave something, but
Dave Rubin,
regardless,
that's the one.
yeah, Dave Rubin, Dave Rubin, yeah. So those three say they have no firm connection to Tenet Media. They're not named in the indictment at all, and none of them are assumed to have known uh, about the links to Russia, the money, Russian propaganda, so on and so forth. That directly is Lauren Chen and Tenet Media. YouTube did terminate the channel, like Xavier mentioned, and yeah, they are in a lot of trouble.
Yeah.
And even after this, I will say certain personalities like Tim Pool, they have not changed their stances. He sarcastically went on X and was like, "Oh well, I think Ukraine's great now," because he's very anti-Ukraine, very isolationist viewpoint. He's like, he said, I believe Ukraine's the worst thing that's happening to America or something of that nature. Um, in saying that, obviously, that sounds like Russian propaganda because Russia would prefer that the U.S. stays out of the way, so that way they can take over Russia and all its assets and land, so on and so forth. So, yeah, Tim has stuck to his guns and sarcastically on X said, "Yeah, I love Ukraine now, and we should give them more billions of dollars." And that was sarcasm, as he later pointed out on his show. So, uh, whether you believe with Tim it's Russian propaganda or not, that's for each individual person to decide. But he's saying that's just how he feels.
Definitely. Definitely. Yeah, I'd be interested to see how it plays out for Tim Pool, Dave Rubin, and the like, just because they were receiving money, likely much high, like larger amounts than they would typically receive for content creation. Um, uh, so when it comes to that, I would be curious if a jury or a grand jury or a judge deems it that, your video gets 800 views. Why did you think it was acceptable that you were receiving $500,000 when your going rate is, you get $22 in ad revenue, a month? Why did you think that $500,000 here was acceptable? Did it raise any questions about the where funding was coming from and things of that nature? I know now they do claim, yes, that they lack knowledge regarding the source of the funding. However, I don't know if reasonable minds would necessarily agree on that, especially if you're being fed certain talking points and seemingly some that are as uh, as blatantly pro-Russian as the ones that were espoused were. So again, not necessarily going to say Tim is guilty or not just yet, but I would be curious as to see what a jury thinks regarding those payments specifically.
Well, one thing I will say is that Tim is a relatively big YouTuber. I will actually check on his subscriber count. So he has 1.37 million subscribers. His videos on average seem to get, probably 25,000 views, but he posts multiple times a day. So that can be like 100,000 views in a day, give or take. So Tim gets views, he gets money, and it wasn't like he was getting like $500,000 per video that he did. I'm pretty sure Tenant Media, so Lauren Chin and her husband reached out to him to make videos on certain topics or whatever. So it'd be very hard to prove that he knew that the money was coming from Russia. It's like if a friend's like, "Hey, can you make a video on this? Like, bro, I'm gonna hook you up. I'm gonna get X. I'll give you 10 bands if you have the moderately educated news network make a video on uh did eating cockroaches." Like, you're gonna be like, "Hey, I might do that. Like, that sounds good to me." You're not gonna overly think about where the money is coming from, dependent upon the amount, which is why they were not mentioned in the indictment, in my opinion. But
Yeah,
actually, the grand juries, to be honest, that's because they were seen as not having any knowledge. So that's by a grand jury. So
for sure, for sure. Yeah, I would say that if somebody were to pay me $10,000 to make that video that you described, likely I would question. I think I would have questions about the motivation, especially just because the current size of my channel is not seemingly worth $10,000. So the amount alone would raise questions. And then not to mention the truth of said content, of course, is something that would have to be assessed before any video is made. I'm reading here that I don't know who. It does say one of the unidentified influencers, but their contract was included a $400,000 monthly fee uh, to Russia RT. So considering that if you're making 25 to 100,000 views per video and then receiving $400,000, that is an absurd conversion rate between views and dollars. You most likely don't even make that much from like your YouTube campaigns and channel. The fact that an outside entity that is paying you such a sizable lump sum just is like, hey, I don't know. Um, it is possible, but if I know if I'm receiving $500,000 from somebody, I'm definitely gonna be curious about I'm gonna ask some questions. I couldn't just feign ignorance that hard. But again, like I
but
said,
this is an unnamed person that wasn't Lauren herself, because that would kind of align with the $10 million over 2 years.
what was that? Repeat that.
I'm saying, so like that wasn't Lauren who was getting 400,000 like a month.
It just says an unidentified influencers contract. So
So unidentified is in like they don't know who the person is, or
They
unidentified is in they don't want to reveal the identity of the
they don't
person.
say the names in the indictments. They use person one, person two, person three, person four, person five for Chen and her husband, and then Poole, Ruben, and I forget the other guy. But those are the five people. None of their names are directly dropped in the indictment, I don't think. Maybe Chen is. I'd have to go back and relook through it.
I
But
thought Siemens was, but yeah.
yeah, no. But when it mentions influencer, I believe it's referring to one of the three, Ruben, Poole, or X, or however that name.
That's the case. That is absolutely insane, and I actually would want to see what happens with that for sure.
For sure, for sure.
And it's like with Lauren, Lauren's definitely guilty because her and her husband and their media company was getting money directly. And on top of that, they were like anti-Israel off rip, very anti-Ukraine. And it's like a lot of Republicans are starting to be more isolationist, like we need to focus on America first, so on and so forth. So it is kind of hard to prove with like the other three, like Tim Pool, Dave Rubin, and Benny Johnson. It's harder to prove with them that they're, perpetuating propaganda. But with Lauren and her husband, that's like that's
Out of there.
directly.
You're cooked. You're
Yeah,
cooked,
you're
homie.
you're going to jail.
Yeah.
You're
Hell
going to
yeah.
prison for a very long time.
Just gonna go meet up with Cosby, my boy. But
And meet
what's
up
that?
with Diddy.
Diddy, there you go. But okay, one final question. I want your opinion on this. How do you feel about Russia propaganda being allowed to be shared in the US? Do you feel like that's acceptable? Do you feel like if they had registered under the FARA Act that propaganda should be allowed and a company just needs to publicly claim that they are funded via some state media? What is your opinions look like there?
I feel like if you say that you're funded by, you know, the media of, funded by state media, like you said, like, okay, well, I'm funded by Russia and these are my opinions. Well, we know you're funded by Russia. It's just like in our system, right? We don't really have necessarily clarity. I mean, it's very obvious who's funded by who, like, right? Fox News is funded by Republicans, CNN, MSNBC is funded by Democrats. Like, whoever's perpetuating whatever, you know who they're being funded by. But in this circumstance, you didn't necessarily know until now, until this indictment came out. So, yes, I believe that if they had said, like, hey, we're being funded by Russia RT, and these are our opinions, then there's a lot more clarity and transparency. And people are going to be like, okay, well, they're funded by Russia. Like, why should we listen to them or believe anything that they're saying at all? So,
Yeah.
yeah, that's how I feel.
No, I'd agree with you there. I'm very much a firm believer in First Amendment, freedom of speech. But I also am a firm believer in honesty and transparency. And so, of course, share your opinions, share propaganda if you want. But identify yourself as a propagandist. Don't try to make it appear as original positions or not serving anybody else's interest. I'd say that. And then one final question, because I just thought about this. In terms of Russia meddling in elections and other forms of not necessarily in terms of hacking voting machines or anything, as direct as that, but in terms of botting on Twitter, which is an extreme problem. Putin releasing an endorsement for Kamala Harris, meddling in elections through the dissemination of propaganda and misinformation and things of that. And do you have any strong feelings towards that?
So it's hard to have strong feelings towards that when misinformation plagues social media, and a lot of people get their news off social media to begin with. So quite literally during COVID, you had misinformation out there. You had misinformation out there during the 2020 election about Hunter Biden, so on and so. Like it's too hard to control the spread of misinformation, and you can't necessarily censor and ban all misinformation. It just doesn't seem probable because there probably is true information, as we've seen before, that will get banned and censored, and then it's like, oh no, I didn't mean to do that. Like it's just not feasible to control all the information without seeming like you're being like China. You know what I'm saying? Like it's they're very like you can only watch this on YouTube. You can only Google search this. Like the rest of this stuff does not exist. So it's very hard to do it without encroaching on people's freedoms
For sure,
and
for sure.
people's speech.
So with like botting on Twitter, if there's an account of a known bot, um, would you want that account banned? Would you say allow it to continue to bot and just flag it? What is your state?
Noted, it needs to be flagged and denoted that it's a bot, just like how Elon, whenever he took over X, he said all parody accounts must be stated somewhere on the actual account that it is a parody account. And if not, the account is removed from the platform. So
Okay,
I definitely believe him implementing that is helpful because he
definitely.
thought bots were a huge issue as well. When he even wanted to buy Twitter, he is like, dude, there's like way more bots on there than what he thought. So.
Big time, big time, big time. Yep, I probably agree with you there. I probably wouldn't have an issue though removing bot accounts because they are just that, bots. So I would, if something for whatever reason was deemed bot activity, probably wouldn't mind that being removed. But flag may also be acceptable in some cases where there's some uncertainty surrounding it. Largely, I feel that Russia has no, again, if you're an American corporation acting in foreign interests, register, do your thing, talk your talk, do what you're gonna do. Don't have a problem with that. In terms of Russia and influencing elections through false statements and hyper hyper polarizing issues that seemingly nobody cares about in social media, most notably on X, some of these spaces. I think there does need to be an effort, especially from Elon and private business as a whole, in order to stop this, to at least mitigate it to whatever degree possible. I don't think that's acceptable. So, uh, but do you have anything else? Any opinions, questions, comments you want to share? You good to go?
Good to go, man. Seems
All
like
right.
we actually pretty much agree on this. If anybody disagrees with us, please let us know in the comments down below. Make sure to go ahead and leave a like, subscribe, and share to a friend or family member. Show us some love. Help us grow. Like he said, we're a small channel, but the views are going up. And look, we want y'all to be along for the ride. So make sure you go ahead and subscribe. We love you guys. Appreciate you for watching us. If you made it this far, uh, you know, we love you. That being said, we're signing off. I'm gonna go ahead and get into the next topic.